Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is item number 4, is the approval of the bills. Well, at this time, I'll call on Mr. Kent Costin, City of Fargo. Mr. Costin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The bills list for this month, $400,241.68. Doesn't appear to be anything new other than the S&P Global rating, which is a fee charged by the rating agency to give us a credit rating associated with the WIFIA loan. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Costin. Any questions of Mr. Costin? This item on the agenda does call for a roll call, but a motion, please.
So move, Carlson.
Is there a second?
Second, Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. It's been moved and seconded to approve the bills as presented by Mr. Costin. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardick.
Yes?
Dr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes.
Mr. Costa.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Montplaisir.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
That is everything.
Thank you, Don. Item number 5 is the financial report. Again, we'll call on Mr. Kent Costin, City of Fargo.
Yes, for the month ending May 31st, the 2021 spend year-to-date is $60,239,399. And the total life-to-date spend on the project is $706,246,739. If you go to the next page, the statement of net position, the balance of net position is $73,728,330. And I did want to add, with regard to this position, will be enhanced by about $28 million because we closed on a bond sale yesterday and we received the proceeds for that bond sale. So you'll see a spike in the June report. That was temporary improvement bonds issued by the Cass Joint Rural Water District. It was consummated by that team. So, and then with regard to the normal budgets, there doesn't appear to be any abnormalities in the variances overall. So that would be the extent of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Costin. Are there any questions of Mr. Costin?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mahoney.
Kent, when you get the money from the state, you're paying off some Wells Fargo loans and such. Will then our position be that we have more money that we have spent, or it'll be still 700?
The purpose of the bond issue that the Joint Water District issued was to pay off the loans with Cass County and with the City of Fargo. So on July, I think it's July 1st, they will transfer that money and pay off those obligations. The 28 million, or excuse me, the 26 million that we got in today was planned as surplus funds just to go into the comprehensive project fund. So it'll be additional working capital. So basically the Cass Joint Water District took on the debt, took out the debt for Cass and the city. So our debt profile has been enhanced, but the Cass Joint Water District has added a debt burden to their debt profile.
And what did you get on a rate?
You know, I wasn't tuned into that.
It was 0.48.
I can answer the question.
Okay.
It's a 0.48 is the interest rate. So it's a little
that's
under.
something to be excited about.
And I just had, this is John Shockley, and I just reached out today, given that all of the finance plan is sort of falling into place. I reached out to the state regarding the timing of their bond sales for bond proceeds to be from the state issuance to be given to the authority so that we can start programming that in. that extra 26 million that Kent spoke about, that is working capital, because with the P3 contract planning to be executed within under 60 days, we will start getting some expenditures along with lands and other items that are going to quickly come into play within the next 12 months. And so we wanted to have sufficient working capital, recognizing that the state of North Dakota hasn't previously bonded for such significant amounts. I believe the total amount that they'd be bonding for would be in the neighborhood of about 800 million. And that's probably a higher amount of bonding than that they've done before. So we really didn't know when the state of North Dakota would be issuing bonds. And so because the rates were so low, we took advantage of that, got some extra working capital under the Cass County joint bonds. If the state of North Dakota comes through sooner than expected, we do have the option to prepay those bonds earlier than when they mature. And so it was just part of the financing plan to kind of give us some breathing room till we knew when the state funds were actually going to be delivered to the authority.
John, does that money savings you get on the bond, that 28 million, then I remember as we were talking about the P3 contact and such, so that's just money that will help us fulfill our obligations in a sense?
It's a little more complex than that. So you will be saving some interest on the Wells Fargo credit facility because you already were paying that to start out with. So you'll have some certainty because it was a total of $180 million the joint board issued. About 150 of that goes to pay off the Wells Fargo loans, and then you have the 26 million remaining. That is going to be used for all of your different obligations, because you're going to have utility relocates coming up. You're going to have other expenses. You'll have more lands expenses, and so there's just a big bucket of money, different expenditures that are going to start happening very quickly, and we'll have certainty around the P3 developer spend rate when we finalize the project agreement here in the next 60 days.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Rick Steen has his hand up. Rick?
Just had to find my mute button there. Thank you. Say, just speaking of the state, how far behind are we in collecting the funds from the State Water Commission? Sitting at 4.2 million.
We typically do that monthly. I'd have to refer to the report. Why do you ask?
It's sitting at 4.2 million. That's why.
Well, because those are large requests.
Right. So I was wondering how many months behind we were on collecting that. Is it 3 months, 2 months? I'm just curious how long it takes to turn that around from the state.
Well, typically they turn it around pretty fast, but it takes maybe 2 to 3 weeks to get all the local approvals, because in the law, we have to seek approval by Cass County, by the City of Fargo, and I think the Joint Water Board, and then submit it to the State Water Commission. I think they're pretty quick to pay, and I do know that they like to clean up their obligations at the end of June, the end of their fiscal year. Okay. So I'm assuming we probably already received that money.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Any additional questions of Mr. Costin? Mr. Shockley, thank you for jumping in on some additional information. Hearing no additional questions on the financial report, we can do is there a motion, please? Oh, I'm sorry, you still got more? Could I have a motion, please, to approve the financial report by Mr. Costin?
Steen moves.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Rethinger, second.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded to approve the financial report as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6, Executive Director Financial Report. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Finance Committee. So I'll just go through my regular report here on operational costs and budget tracking. Not too much has changed since the last month. We've added some additional costs, obviously, in the lands, the engineering, and the P3 support. But as you can see on this level 1 summary, we're still well below and tracking well on all of those items. So we're at, about 3.8 million on P3 support services of the $17 million budget. That's one area that I think we'll see, an uptick as we begin working with the Red River Valley Alliance and moving towards closing on their agreement. And then I'll note under the lands and impacted property mitigation, we are tracking this year's expenditures on the lands program in relation to what we were expecting for the 2021 annual cash budget. So all appears well there. And then you can see we're about halfway through our engineering, legal, and financial budget, and that was expected about at this point in the year. So I'll move on to the level 2 summary here. Just so we can dig in a little bit further on some of these items. Nothing too big to report out here. You can just see diversion channel and associated infrastructure, the management, legal, and the channel construction, well below budget. Those are anticipated to have a pretty significant uptick in the last half of the year here. Again, as we move to close the deal and begin working with the Red River Valley Alliance. And we'll move to the next page here. This shows the other mitigation projects that we're working on. Oxbow Hickson Baki project has had some expenditures this year. And then, the large project expenditure for the Buffalo River mitigation that is related to the settlement agreement. And then we have our in-town flood control projects that continue to move on in Fargo. Those appear to be moving along as planned, and a lot of activity taking place already on many of those projects. And then you'll see in the lands acquisition and mitigation columns, a lot of work being done here again. Our lands program is making an immense amount of progress. We were able to acquire all the property rights in order to close the agreement with the Red River Valley Alliance as we move forward this year. So that's something that we need to celebrate. But overall, the expenditures, have been coming in under the overall, or as anticipated under the overall budget for the land acquisition and mitigation. Move on to the next sheet here and the final. And as you can see, these are our engineering fees for the year. As expected, again, no items of concern at the moment on any of the various projects that we have moving forward on the engineering side. And then you can see our program management services are as expected as of May 28th. So overall, as Mr. Costin had mentioned, expenditures to date, we're sitting at 76 million of our $219 million cash budget. Actual expenditures for the program to date is at $706 million. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll certainly open for any questions the committee may have.
Questions for Mr. Paulson? Any questions? All right, then please move on into your contracting actions, Joel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as of this month, we do not have any contracting actions for the Finance Committee to take action on. So we can certainly move into the MOUs at this time.
All right, very good.
And we'll have Mr. Shockley take over.
Mr. Shockley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Joel. It's my pleasure to continue getting through all of the MOUs for the diversion channel. I think we're making, as with all the other components of the project, we're making very good progress in getting most of the MOUs finalized and through the approval process. I think there'll be a few more next month that just weren't quite ready for this month's meeting. So we have 4 MOUs. They're all, and just as a reminder to the board, these are for utilities or different political subdivisions that have easements or other utilities that cross the diversion channel. And as from the first principle standpoint, the purpose of the MOU is to assure that the developer who that has been selected will be able to coordinate the utility relocates with the various utilities or political subdivisions. And in effect, we negotiate out the MOU, and then the developer stands in and takes over the obligations that are set forth in the MOU and executes the utility relocations. And the costs associated with these utility relocations are priced into the developer's bid. So the first of the 4, and we can certainly take all 4 or individually approve them, but I'll just briefly cover them. The first is with the Maple River Water Resource District and the Diversion Authority. This is for the coordination of the relocation and division of remnant drain 14, 14B, and 14C, and requiring the developer to construct inlets on 14B and C into the diversion channel. The second is with AT&T. This is for coordination of utility relocates and operations and maintenance activities after the utility relocates. Within the MOU, you'll see all of the different locations for the easements are set forth. Senex Pipeline, very similar. This is for the relocation of the pipeline and the work that's associated with that, along with the operations and maintenance. And then finally, similarly, the Minn Kota and Metro Flood Diversion Authority MOU, it is for the relocation of the utilities during construction, and then the operations and maintenance after the completion of the utility relocation work. And once again, there'll be a few more next month, but we should start to see these taper off, with the goal being that they're all complete by the time we commercially close with the developer, which is anticipated to be within 60 days. Happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Questions for Mr. Shockley? If it's all right with the board, being there are no questions on these MOUs, we'll take, it'll be an action item for all, the approval of all 4.
Mahoney, move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Steve.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair, there was actually 5. I missed the Harwood.
I wondered if you were going to come on that later. Go ahead, Mr. Shockley, on number 5.
Yeah, the Harwood MOU is very similar. It addresses, it's one of the first township ones that is coming through, but we've, Chris Bockegard has been doing yeoman's work along with Katie Birch from my office in working through these MOUs with each of the townships along the channel right of way regarding the crossing construction costs and then the expenses that they would incur for cutoffs of township roads and the platting process. And so they've done a great job and worked through some of all of the issues. And this is the first of the township MOUs that are coming through for the board approval.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Questions on number 5? I'd ask that the maker of the motion and the second, could we amend that so it's all 5 items at once?
Mahoney, I amend it and say all 5.
All right,
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Don, would you please call the roll?
Can I get a repeat on the second, please?
Steen will second.
Mayor Dardis,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Costa,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Montplaisir,
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Don, are you done? I didn't hear anything.
Yes, I said that is everyone. Can you hear
All
me
right,
okay?
thank you. Next order of business is the land acquisition directive for Southeast dash 2A. Mr. Vetter.
Thanks, Mayor Dardis and Finance Committee members. This is for the REACH SE2A of the Southern Embankment. Maybe if we can just jump to page 270, I'll give you a little pictorial. It's a rather small area. It runs just north of the inlet and up to around where the Drain 27 project with the property rights were already moving out and acquiring in those areas. So fairly, just a handful of parcels. Right of way was completed here just in early April. So going back to page 268, we have those parcels which involve about a total land acquisition budget of 2.505 and some change. And so we are just seeking the Finance Committee's review and approval of this land acquisition directive to move forward with the property rights needed.
Thank you, Mr. Vetter. Questions for Mr. Vetter? This is an action item. I need a motion to approve Mr. Vetter's report.
Steen moves.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Is there a second?
Rachel second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, what was the Savage's response to their buyout? I know they have been part and parcel of this. They felt they got a fair price.
Mayor Mahoney, this particular parcel is actually one of the parcels of land that they own. It does not include their residential and farmstead. So this is actually really close to the inlet, another parcel that they own. But with regard to your question, we're currently working through that. I know our land agent had met with them just last night. And yeah, their farmstead is a little bit east of where this is, just less than a mile away. So.
Additional questions? Discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. I'm sorry, Mayor Mahoney, you have a question again?
I'm sorry, I left my hand. I will take it down, Bernie. Sorry.
Okay. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis,
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Costin,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Montplaisir,
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Next order of business is a property acquisition status report. Again, we call on Mr. Vetter.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll just jump here to page 272 for those that are following along. This is our general overview of the status of where our parcels are at as far as the acquisition process. We've picked up a few more since the last month on our acquired or the green parcels. And our last resort eminent domain parcels have been holding steady at 90. However, happy to report that our Cass County joint meeting was moved up to this morning versus tomorrow. And there was one parcel, part of the SE1 that was approved there, that was in the last resort eminent domain that we did seek and receive a voluntary agreement on. So we're hoping to finalize that purchase agreement here in the very near future to move that to a acquisition in the green status. I guess the rest of the report is your usual drill down into a number of other sub projects within the within the project, the larger project, and I guess I'll stand for any questions if there are on any of the following pages or this page.
Thank you, Mr. Vetter. Questions for Mr. Vetter? Any questions at all? All right, that concludes our meeting today. This is for information only with regard to the status of our acquisitions. Any of the Finance Committee or Mr. Paulson, Mr. Shockley, you have anything additional that you'd like to add to the meeting?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley.
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mahoney, you do?
Bernie, I just had a question. We had some concerns before the P3 bid finally came out, and a variety of different discussions were held. Am I to understand at this point we're fine? You know, there were different ideas, federal, state, local, different ways of raising more funding. John Shockley, it appears to me that, I mean, we're a little bit of a concern 2 or 3 weeks ago, but now somehow it seems like there's settled waters and everything is fine. Is there something I missed in the last 2 weeks that happened that made everybody happy?
Well, I can certainly jump in. With respect to the finance plan, we have a plan that we are carrying out that was discussed about the 4 stools, and we're currently working on the one leg of the stool with respect to the P3 developer. I think my message is that we are on task right now, but it's important to keep our eye on the ball and properly manage the costs and expenditures and revenues through the project, through completion of the project, because we have lots of land to buy and lots of other expenses to cover. So additional sources of revenue, whether in the form of grants, are always great, and other cost reductions are also great.
And John, on that question is the fact that, you know, do you get to go back to the P3 person now with we have money in hand right now, and we had milestone payments. Is there a way you can restructure that financial plan at all that gives us any savings, or is that already done, or is that what you negotiate the next 3 months?
Over the next 60 days, and obviously we don't necessarily want to talk publicly about what we would be asking the developer, but we will, before we reach commercial close, we will asking the developer to look at other potential cost savings before we close the agreement in 60 days.
Thank you.
And to your point, Mayor Mahoney, and the comments by Mr. Shockley, that is a critical part of the negotiation. And, I think we've all been amazed by what has transpired with regard to the interest rates that we did get. And so, we're moving forward on a very positive note, but we do have a lot of expenditures coming at us in the remainder of 2021 with land acquisition. There's no doubt about that. So anybody else have anything additional questions of Mr. Shockley with regard to Mayor Mahoney's question? Our next meeting will be July 21st. Nothing else? We stand adjourned. Thank you.